A good Vach, Shavua Tov. Great to be learning with you on a Saturday night. It's Yom Rishon. It's already Sunday. Let's light up the darkness. Who's in the house to start their week right? Guy in Ohio, Paul in the Great Northwest, Sharon in New Jersey, Bella in Florida. Aoife in Florida. Welcome, everybody. As always, I'm so impressed with the East Coast people learning well past midnight. You're in a beautiful situation. Everybody who's learning with us right now, anytime you're learning, right then and there, you know that you're doing God's will. What a good feeling. What a good feeling. Let's do it. We are working our way through chapter 6 of Tractate Bava Metzia. We're going to be finishing page 78b, God willing, right now, and then moving into our daf today, page 79. We're continuing our discussion of Mishna number 2 here in chapter 6, and with God's help, we will finish this discussion of this Mishnah tonight. The Mishnah taught with regard to one who rents a donkey and it became ill, that the one who rented it to him bears no responsibility. And the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of the term vehevrika, which is the term used, translated here as became ill? So here in Bava, right, in Babylonia, that portion of Persia where the sages of the Babylonian Talmud are learning and teaching, so they interpreted it as a light in the eye, meaning a white spot that forms in the pupil of the donkey's eye, and that impairs its vision, meaning it can still carry a burden, it's just not optimal, it can't see as well as it usually does. And Rava said that it is referring to worm rot, avzeket, a disease of worms in the donkey's foot. So with regard to the term worm rot, the Gemara relates, there was a certain individual who said to others, I saw worm rot on the king's clothing. And they said to him, on what did you see it? On silver items or on gold items. And here they don't mean silver metal or gold metal. They mean silver items which are understood in this context to be linen, or gold items which are understood to be wool. And what they're saying is, what did you actually see? Because worm rot can appear on wool, but it doesn't appear on linen. And there are those who say that he said he had seen it on silver items, and they killed him because he was lying and he had basically besmirched the name of the king. And since worms are not found on linen garments, they realized that he must have been lying. And there are those who say that he said he had seen it on gold items and therefore they let him be. And in the note, there's an interpretation of this story that actually what was going on, it was the guardian, the custodian of the king's wardrobe, where there really were garments that had silver and gold on them, and the silver was prone to tarnishing, but the gold was not. And they were asking him, had he done his job properly or not? Now, the Mishnah taught that if, or it says or, right? So, or, if the donkey was seized for public service, so the owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you, right? So meaning, if you rent this guy's donkey, right, and then you're using the donkey to haul your merchandise to a market somewhere, you rented it for a business purpose, and on your way to take your merchandise to that place, or on your way to ride the donkey to the place where you're going, the government comes along and seizes the donkey. Now, who bears responsibility to get you to the place where you're going? Does the owner of the donkey need to supply you with another donkey? Or is it your tough luck that while you had rented the donkey, the government seized the donkey? So Rav says, they taught this law, right, that it's the renter's problem, but they taught this law only with regard to temporary public service, i.e. the government confiscates the animal for a certain period of time, after which they return it. But in the case of permanent public service, where they confiscated the animal permanently, so the owner is obligated to provide the renter with another donkey, right? So Rav is saying that it's the renter's problem. If it's a temporary confiscation, he's going to have to wait until he can get the donkey back, and then he continue his business. But if they permanently confiscate the donkey, then it's the owner's problem because he had agreed to provide the renter with a donkey, and he's going to have to make good on that. Shmuel has a different interpretation. Shmuel said, whether the donkey was seized to perform a permanent public service or a temporary public service, if it was seized and then taken in the same direction that it was already going, meaning that the government officials led the animal in the direction that it was already going, so then the owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you. Meaning, the common practice was that when an animal was confiscated by government officials, the one who had been leading it would follow them until the officials found another animal. And at this point, the officials would take the animal they just found and release the one that they had previously seized, and therefore the owner can insist that the renter follow the officials, who in any event are going in the same direction that he wishes to go, in order to retrieve the animal that he had rented. But if the government seized the donkey and then it was taken in a different direction, not in the one it was going, then the owner of the donkey would be obligated to provide the renter with another donkey. Right, so just remember that Rav says, if it was seized by the government, the owner can say, that which is yours is before you. Right, meaning your tough luck on the renter depends on whether it was temporary or permanent. And Shmuel says that the owner can say it's your tough luck, that which is yours is before you, depending on where the government was taking the donkey. If in the same direction was already going, then it's the renter's problem. He has to follow the donkey to get it back. If they're taking it in another direction, the owner has to provide a new donkey. Now, the Gemara raises an objection from a Baraisa with regard to one who rents a donkey and it became ill or it went mad. The owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you. If it died or was seized for public service, the owner is obligated to provide the renter with another donkey. So right away we see a contradiction between this Baraisa and the Mishna that we're studying, where the Baraisa says it was confiscated for public service. The owner is on the hook and has to provide the substitute donkey. Now granted, according to the opinion of Rav, this is not difficult, as he can explain that here in the Mishnah, it is referring to permanent public service, and therefore the owner does not have to provide the renter with another donkey. He doesn't have to provide the renter with another donkey if it was a temporary seizure, but he does if it was permanent. Whereas there in the Baraisa, it is referring to temporary public service. Consequently, the owner must give the renter another donkey when it's permanent. But according to the opinion of Shmuel, we have a difficulty. And if you would say, well, according to the opinion of Shmuel too, it is not difficult, as we could resolve the apparent contradiction between the Mishnah and the Baraisa in a similar manner by explaining that here in the Mishnah, it is referring to a case where it was seized and then taken in the direction that it was walking, in which case the owner doesn't have to provide a new donkey. And there in the Baraisa, it is referring to a case where the government seized the donkey and took it not in the direction that the renter was already going in, and so therefore the owner has to provide a new donkey. But the problem is that this cannot be accepted because from the fact that the Baraisa teaches in the latter clause that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, right, this is the latter part of that Baraisa, if it was seized and then taken in the direction in which it was walking, the owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you, but if not, the owner is obligated to provide the renter with another donkey. So by inference, one can learn that according to the opinion of the first Tana in the Baraisa, there is no difference whether or not the animal was seized and then taken in the direction in which it was walking. And if so, the Baraisa is difficult to reconcile with Shmuel. We could reconcile it with Rava, but we can't reconcile it with Shmuel because it includes this other teaching of Shimon ben Elazar, which is Shmuel's opinion, and therefore the first clause of the Baraisa must be different than that and would therefore conflict with Shmuel. So the Gemara answers that Shmuel could say to you, Isn't there the ruling of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar who holds in accordance with my opinion? I spoke in accordance with the ruling of Shimon ben Elazar. Okay, so Shmuel doesn't hold like the first Tan of the Baraisa. He holds like Shimon ben Elazar. So if you wish, say instead that the entire Baraisa is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, but it is incomplete. And this is what it is teaching. With regard to one who rented a donkey and it became ill or went mad, the owner considered the renter that which is yours is before you. If it died or was seized for public service, the owner is obligated to provide the renter with another donkey. And in what case is this statement said? When it was seized and then not taken in the direction in which it was already walking, but in a different direction. But if it was seized and then taken in the direction in which it was already walking, the owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you. Stay with the donkey, renter. The fact that it was taken temporarily and going in the same direction as you is your problem, not the problem of the owner. Now we're on page 79a. This is the statement of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. As Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would say, if the animal was seized and then taken in the direction in which it was walking, the owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you. But if not, the owner is obligated to provide the renter with another donkey. So the Gemara asks, and can you establish the entire Baraisa in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar? But the first clause teaches, with regard to one who rents a donkey and it became ill or went mad, the owner can say to the renter, that which is yours is before you. And yet, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said in a different Baraisa, with regard to one who rents a donkey to ride on and it becomes ill or goes mad, the owner is obligated to provide the renter with another donkey. So the first clause doesn't square with Shimon ben Elazar with regard to a donkey who gets ill or goes mad. That if we think in modern terms, Avis rents you a car, the car breaks down, hey, you expect that Avis is going to provide you with a substitute car. But if you rented a car from your neighbor and you said, I'm going to, you're not using that car anyway, I need to take this big trip, I'm going to take that car, 1,000 miles to make this pilgrimage that I always wanted to go to this town in Colorado, whatever. And you take it for 1,000 miles, and then the car breaks down along the way. I mean, do you think your neighbor is going to, rush in and bring you a new substitute car? No, you know that when you rented it as is, and now you're going to have, if something goes wrong with it, you're going to have to fix it. That which is yours is before you during the rental period. So that you can see why there's two sides of that, but it seems like the Baraisa says, if the donkey goes ill or goes mad, the anonymous Tana of that Baraisa, which would mean the majority opinion, says if the donkey goes ill or goes mad, that's the renter's problem. But Shimon ben Elazar says no. In that situation, the owner has to provide the substitute donkey. So Rabba bar Rav Huna said, this is not a contradiction. The case of one who takes a donkey to ride on it is different, as he requires a donkey that walks steadily. And a sick donkey is no better than a dead donkey for this purpose. And Rav Papa said, and acquiring a donkey so that it should carry glass vessels is also considered like riding on it, as glass vessels also require a steady walking donkey to prevent the load from falling. But if you're just hauling some, sacks of wheat, a sick donkey, who can still carry but just wanders a little bit, he can still do the job. You can get it done. So Rabba bar Rav Huna says that Rav says, in the case of one who rents a donkey to ride on it, and it died halfway through the journey, the renter gives the owner his fee for half of the journey, but the renter has nothing but a grievance against the owner. He has no legal claim against the owner over the fact that he now has to go to great trouble to find another donkey. Now you can say, why did the donkey die halfway through the journey? Right? Did not the owner hear what the renter wanted to use the donkey for? He was told, I'm going to take this donkey, I'm going to ride, 100 miles. It's going to take me 3 days, and we're going to go to such and such a place. So he knew what he was renting it out for. And if he rented out a weak donkey that was going to be incapable of completing such a journey, then maybe he should be liable. On the other hand, maybe the donkey was perfectly healthy yesterday and the day before yesterday. No one knew that the donkey had some kind of a heart condition, and it got triggered on this trip, situation beyond anyone's control. So it happened on this trip. Why should the owner of the donkey be responsible? He rented out a perfectly good donkey, and now the renter is telling him, hey, your donkey died. The owner is probably suspicious of the renter. What did you do to my donkey? Right? So what they're saying here is, in the normal course of things, the donkey dies halfway through. Okay, well, as far as the renter is concerned, it got you halfway there. You have to pay the rental fee for half the journey. And beyond that, okay, you had to find a replacement donkey. That was difficult for you. You can have a grievance against the owner, but you don't have a monetary claim. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances? If this is referring to a place where donkeys are available for rent, so what's the purpose of even having a grievance? He does not have any cause for grievance in this case, as he can simply rent another donkey. He has not lost anything. But if it is a place where donkeys are not available for rent, should he be required to give the owner his fee at all? After all, the donkey failed to get him where he was going, and then he was stranded. So the Gemara explains, actually, the circumstances are referring to a place where donkeys are not available for rent, and the renter must pay the owner due to the fact that the owner of the donkey can say to him, listen, had you wanted to come here, meaning halfway through the journey, wouldn't you have had to pay a fee? Well, therefore, pay me for the distance that my donkey did carry you. And the Gemara further inquires, what are the circumstances? If this is referring to a case where the owner said to him, I am renting you an unspecified donkey. What's an unspecified donkey? Meaning, did the renter come to this owner of the donkey and say, I'd like to rent that donkey? Right? So then, if the donkey dies, okay, well, the owner provided the service for which he contracted. He was asked to rent out that donkey, and he rented out that donkey. It died halfway through. Okay, well, that's what happened, but he fulfilled his end of the bargain. But if the renter came to this guy, probably had somebody who has lots of donkeys, and says to him, I would like to rent a donkey to get me to my destination, in Haifa. So that was the deal, a donkey to get me to Haifa. So the donkey that was rented out died halfway to Haifa. So now the owner has to provide another donkey because his end of the deal was a donkey to get me to Haifa, not that specific donkey. That's the difference between specified and unspecified. So, what are the circumstances? If this is referring to a case where the owner said to him, I am renting you an unspecified donkey, the owner is obligated to provide him with another donkey. Since the owner promised him a donkey, if the first donkey is no longer available, he must give him another one. If it is referring to a case where he said to him, I am renting you this particular donkey, then if there is enough money to be gained from selling its carcass to purchase another donkey, let the renter purchase another donkey. That seems so unlikely that the carcass of a dead donkey is going to be worth enough money to purchase a replacement donkey. But okay, maybe he's in a place where donkeys are cheap. Now the Gemara responds, no, it is necessary to state this law only in a case where there is not enough money to be gained from the sale of the carcass to purchase another donkey. So that's where the owner would have to step in and replace the donkey if it was an unspecified donkey. And the Gemara asks, well, even so, if there is enough money to be gained from the sale of the carcass to rent another donkey, so then let the renter sell this carcass of the dead donkey, rent a new donkey, wherever there's a guy that can rent him a donkey along in that place halfway along the journey, and then he can continue along his way. So what grounds does he have for a grievance? And the Gemara explains that Rav conforms to his standard line of reasoning. As Rav said, one may not fully deplete the principal in order to pay rental fees. Consequently, the renter has no right to sell the carcass so as not to deplete the entire monetary value of the donkey. He rented a live donkey. If that donkey dies, and then he sells the carcass and uses that to rent another donkey to get him on his way, okay, he's going to finish his journey. Then he's going to return the second donkey to its owner. And then eventually he's going to get back to, where the owner of the first donkey. And the owner's going to say to him, where's my donkey? And he says, well, your donkey died. And the owner says, well, that's terrible. What'd you do with the carcass? Oh, I sold it. Oh, I see. Okay, well, give me the money. Well, no, I used that money to hire another donkey to finish my journey. Sounds like that might be okay if it was an unspecified donkey rental in the first place. Not okay if it was a specific donkey rental. But even if it's okay because it was an unspecified donkey that he rented, now that he completely depleted that value, it's gone. The owner of that donkey gets nothing back. This is not okay. This is not permitted according to Rav, because you may not fully deplete the principal. So the Gemara raises an objection to Rav's opinion from a Baraisa in the Tosefta Arachin 5.1, which discusses the case of a borrower who gives his lender a tree. Somebody's borrowing money and he's putting up collateral. What's the collateral? A tree. So the tree is security for a loan so that the lender may eat an amount of its fruit up to the value of the loan. Here's the tree. You can keep eating apples, keep track of how many you eat. When the value of the apples you've eaten equals the value of the loan that you extended to me, so we're good, right? I paid you back using apples from my tree. Okay, but what happens if the tree gets sick and die or something goes wrong with it? So if the tree dried up or it was cut down, it is prohibited for both the borrower and the lender to use the body of the tree, right? Because if the lender uses the body of the tree to satisfy the debt, the borrower, who is the owner of the tree, is going to get nothing back when he put up his collateral. And it's prohibited for the lender, for the borrower, to then sell the body of the tree and get some money out of it, because the lender has a lien on that tree. So what should be done? The body of the tree, meaning the lumber, should be sold, and land should be purchased with the proceeds from the sale of what is left of the tree, and the lender enjoys the profits of that land. It's probably a small plot, but you can farm it and get something out of it. And the Gemara explains the objection. And yet, here, once the Yovel, the Jubilee year, arrives, that purchased land will return to its original owner. It will not remain with the borrower after the loan has been repaid. He had a tree. They sold the tree to purchase some land that could provide, some produce. But, right, when the Yovel was being observed in the land of Israel, then there was no such thing as a permanent sale of land. You could only sell land for the number of crop years left until the next Jubilee year, and then it would go back to its previous owner. It will not remain with the borrower after the loan has been repaid, and it will turn out that the principal is fully depleted, as the borrower will be left with nothing. So the Gemara responds with, what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a case where he purchased the field for 60 years. Well, why would purchasing the field for 60 years? How's that even possible? Don't all land purchases return to their owner at the Yovel, at the Jubilee year? And at most, that would be 50 years, because there's a Jubilee year every 50 years. But Rav Chisda says that Rav Katina says, from where is it derived with regard to one who sells his field for 60 years or any fixed length of time, that it does not return to its original owner in the Jubilee year, as it is stated, Leviticus 25:23, and the land shall not be sold in perpetuity, meaning fields go back in the Jubilee year. So this prohibition applies to land which, if there were no Jubilee year, would be sold in perpetuity. But as there is a Jubilee year, it is not sold in perpetuity. And that excludes this case, where the field is sold for a fixed length of time, as even though there is no Jubilee year, it is not sold in perpetuity because it was a 60-year sale. So what they're telling you is the Jubilee year makes fields go back if you didn't specify how long you were selling it for, so then you were selling it until the next Jubilee year. But if you say I'm selling it for 60 years, that's not a sale in perpetuity, so the Jubilee year won't cancel that arrangement. When it arrives, it remains a 60-year arrangement. So now let's get back to this concept of that a renter or a creditor that has a lien cannot deplete the principal fully, cannot fully deplete the principal. So the Gemara raises a difficulty. Ultimately, when the end of those 60 years arrives, the land will return to its owner. And at that point, the principal will be fully depleted. And the Gemara answers, rather, what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a period when the laws of the Jubilee year are not even in effect. Like now, there's no Jubilee year in effect anymore since the temple was destroyed. So if you buy and sell land in Israel, that's a permanent sale. It's not until the next Yovel. Is not observed. So the Gemara adds support for this explanation, and this too stands to reason, as if it enters your mind that this law is referring to a period when the laws of the Jubilee year are in effect, and the ruling is that the principal may be fully depleted, why undertake a complicated transaction? Let the lender simply cut the tree into branches for kindling and take it and sell it right away. So the Gemara responds, if the challenge to Rav's opinion is due to that Baraisa, it is not difficult. There may be times that the years during which the lender is entitled to the collateral are completed before the arrival of the Jubilee year. I mean, he didn't lend that much money. He was going to get paid back by fruit from that tree. So, okay, the tree dried up. You sell it, you trade it for land, you get produce out of that land. I mean, how long is it really going to take to pay off that debt? Probably not, as many years as are left until the Jubilee year. So it's not necessarily so that you're going to fully deplete the principal. Alternatively, it is possible that money comes into the borrower's possession and he can pay back the loan. So he redeems the field 4 or 5 years before the arrival of the Jubilee year. In this case, the principal will not be fully depleted as he repays the loan before the land is returned. So the sages taught with regard. So that's it. That's where we ended up. What happens with this donkey that you rented and it died? It seems to be that if it was an unspecified donkey, so then the renter has some rights, and probably he can, he's got a dead donkey now. The owner's got to provide him with a replacement donkey. Is he going to go all the way back and get a new donkey? I mean, that's really going to be a hardship. Probably, if it's possible, he could sell that carcass, rent the donkey, finish the journey. And sadly, the principal was fully depleted, but he had a right to do that. Or you can make the other argument, you can't fully deplete the principal. A little bit unclear. Okay, now we're going back to our Mishna and a different kind of rental. The sages taught with regard to one who rents a boat, and it's sunk halfway through the journey. But you can see how it's related to the donkey that died halfway through the journey. So one rents a boat, and it's sunk halfway through the journey. And I think it's helpful to imagine this situation where, unlike you rented a donkey from an owner and you left him behind at the point of departure, when you rent a boat, the way you're doing it is like the owner of the boat is going to be captaining the boat for you, right? So you hired the boat, you rented the boat, but the owner of the boat is there with you. Okay, now, with regard to one who rents a boat, and it's sunk halfway through the journey. So Rabbi Nassan says, if the renter already gave money for the boat, he does not receive a refund. But if he has not yet given money, he does not give it after the boat has sunk. Now, why would this be? What difference does it make whether the money changed hands already or not? The question is, who's liable, right? Who is liable for this? Is it that the owner provided a faulty boat? Is it that the renter, told them to go to a place where they shouldn't have gone? What's actually going on here? Why does it matter whether the money has changed hands or not? And what we seem to be saying is, if the money already went to the owner, the renter doesn't get it back. If the renter hasn't paid the money yet, he doesn't have to pay it. Now, what that should trigger us to think is that there's a claim problem, right? Meaning that wherever the money is, it's going to stay, because it's always that, one seeking to extract money from another, he has the burden of proof. And it would seem that here, neither one is able to meet his burden. Why? Let's see. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of this contract? If we say that the owner stated he was renting him this particular boat, right? Like a specified donkey, now we're talking about a particular boat. So if we say the owner stated he was renting him this particular boat, and the renter said that he was transporting unspecified wine, right? So the renter said at the outset, please rent me this boat. I have wine to transport, right? Wine generally. Unspecified wine. Then, even if he gave the money, why should he not receive a refund, right? He said, I just have wine that I need to transport. Okay, the boat sunk. I lost the wine that was on that boat, but I still have the job to do. I have wine that I have other wine. It needs to be transported there, right? So if he hired an unspecified boat, so that would be like, provide me another boat. But if he said, I want to hire this boat, why should, he hired that boat. Okay, that boat sunk, but the owner of the boat provided that boat, right? So if we say that the owner stated he was renting this particular boat, and the renter stated that he was transporting unspecified wine, then even if he gave money, why should he not receive a refund? Let him say to the owner, give me the boat so that I can transport wine. And if you cannot do so, refund the rental fee so that I can rent another boat. Rather, one could say that this is referring to a situation where the owner said he would rent him an unspecified boat. I'll rent you a boat. And the renter said that he would transport this particular wine. But in that case, even if he did not give the money, why should he not give the owner the rental fee? Now we're on 79b, because the owner can say to him, okay, give me that wine, right? You said you want to transport that wine. Okay, well, give me that wine. I've got a boat. In other words, what's going on here is that each one can make an argument that I'm prepared to deliver on my end of the bargain, right? So if the owner had promised an unspecified boat, then he can say, well, that boat sunk, but I'm ready to give you another boat. If the renter had said, I want to transport this specific wine, so the owner can say, well, give me the wine. The guy will say, well, it's at the bottom of the ocean. The owner of the boat will say, too bad. I'm ready to fulfill my end of the bargain. Give me the money that you promised to give. Flip side of that, if the renter was saying, I need to transport wine, unspecified wine, and the owner had said, I'll rent you this boat, so now it's sunk, so the renter can say, okay, I have wine to transport, give me the boat. The owner says, well, my boat's at the bottom of the sea. The other guy says, well, tough luck. My wine still needs to be transported. You can't fulfill your end of the bargain. So if you have my money, give it back, or I don't have to pay you. Right? Let the owner say to him, give me that wine and I will bring a boat. Since that particular wine is gone, the renter cannot comply with his request, and therefore he should have to pay the rental fee, right? So here it's dependent on, they originally made a deal, who is still able to deliver on the deal that they made. He's not at fault. Therefore, if he can say that the other one is not able to deliver what they originally promised, then that one is at fault and he's liable. Rav Papa said, you find the correct application of Rabbi Nassan's ruling only in a case where if the money has changed hand, if the renter already paid the money to the owner and then the ship sank, then the owner keeps it. And if the renter has not yet paid the money and the ship sank, then the renter doesn't have to pay. That's Rabbi Nassan's ruling. So Rav Papa is saying that ruling is only going to apply in a case where the two parties stipulated this specific boat and that specific wine. Since neither party can fulfill his part of the agreement, the money remains where it is. If it's been paid, it stays there. If it hasn't been paid, it stays where it is. Since neither party can fulfill his part of the agreement, the money stays where it is. But if they stipulated an unspecified boat and unspecified wine, as they can both complete their end of the agreement, they divide the rental fee, i.e. the renter pays half. The sages taught, with regard to one who rents a boat and unloads it halfway through the journey, the renter gives the owner his rental fee for half the journey, and the owner of the boat has nothing but a grievance against him. So the renter said, I want to sail my goods, right, from Haifa down to to Tel Aviv, right? And they get halfway there, I guess, like Netanya, and he says, you know what? Let's stop here. I realize I could do business here. I'm going to get a better price for my goods. Let's stop here. Okay, but the owner was expecting to make, a much longer journey and get paid for a longer journey. So, with regard to one who rents a boat and unloads it halfway through the journey, the renter gives the owner his rental fee for half the journey. And the owner of the boat has nothing but a grievance. So the Gemara, meaning no monetary claim. So the Gemara asks, what are the circumstances? If we say that this is referring to a situation where the owner can find someone else to whom he can rent out the boat, right, for the next day's work, why does he have grounds for a grievance? And if it is referring to a case where he cannot find another to whom he can rent it out, the renter should be required to pay the full rental fee, as he reneged on his commitment to rent the boat for the entire trip, and this caused a financial loss to the owner of the boat. And the Gemara answers, actually, this is referring to a case where the owner can find someone else to whom he can rent out the boat. But why does he have cause for a grievance? Because of the wear and tear on the boat due to the additional loading and unloading of cargo, which was not taken into account in their agreement. Maybe this is going to be a 3-day trip. Okay, so the boat was going to have a loading session on Tuesday. It's going to have an unloading session on Friday. And every time there's loading and unloading, you have to actually hire extra people, like longshoremen to do loading and unloading. That costs the owner of the boat money. So an extra session of unloading after a day's travel is a problem for the owner. And there's wear and tear on the boat. So the Gemara asks, well, if that is the case, that is a proper legal claim. And the owner of the boat has not merely a grievance against the renter, but cause for claiming monetary restitution from him. So rather, what is the meaning of the term paraka? This means that the renter unloaded more of his own cargo into the boat halfway through the journey. And you're like, wait, what do you mean unloaded into the boat? Unloaded into the boat? Don't you unload the boat means you remove cargo from the boat? So in the notes, this either means that he's actually adding more cargo to the boat than was expected, or he what he does is he gets there, halfway, and he sells the cargo, and then the renter gets off the boat, but the purchaser of the cargo gets on the boat, and there might be an unloading and a reloading because the new purchaser, the new owner says, I want to bring this to where the original guy was going, and I'm going to sell it there. I'm just taking over. And maybe he's even adding more cargo. It's that kind of a change. More cargo into the boat halfway through the journey. So accordingly, the Baraisa is ruling that the renter must pay a fee for the additional cargo only for the second half of the journey. And the Gemara asks, but if so, what is the grievance? Why should the owner object to this arrangement at all? The Gemara explains that the grievance is due to the change from the owner's prior intention, as they had not agreed upon the addition of this additional cargo when they performed the original transaction. Alternatively, the grievance is because of the extra rope that was necessary to secure the added cargo. And the sages taught in a Baraisa with regard to one who rents a donkey to ride on it, the renter may place on it his garment, his water jug, and food for that journey. Beyond those items, the donkey driver who would take the renter on the journey may prevent him from placing anything on the animal by saying that he does not wish to further burden the donkey. And the donkey driver may place on it barley and hay for the donkey and his own food for the first day alone. Beyond those items, the renter may prevent him from placing anything on the animal. Okay, so when you rent the donkey, it comes with the donkey driver. So similar to renting the boat that comes with the owner of the boat to captain the boat for you, as it were. Now we're talking about the donkey. Limited space on that donkey, right? So the owner of the donkey can say, well, this is how much stuff you can put on that donkey and no more, because the donkey, will be weakened and could get injured. And you can't use the full load capacity of the donkey, because I also have to put on the donkey food for the donkey to eat and food for me, the donkey driver, to eat, right? So there's a limit to how much the renter can put on it. And then the renter can say to the donkey driver, okay, there's also a limit of what you can put on it. You can't haul your stuff around. only what you need for you and the donkey to eat, and only for one day, because tomorrow you can buy fresh supplies, but I have a lot of stuff that I need to transport. That's why I'm hiring this donkey. So the Gemara asks, what are the circumstances? If this is referring to a situation where food is available for purchase, the donkey driver should also be able to prevent the renter from bringing food for the entire journey. And if it is a case where food is not available for purchase, the renter should also not be able to prevent the donkey driver from loading on the donkey his own food for the entire journey. So Rav Papa said, no, the ruling of the Baraisa is necessary in a situation where food is available for one who goes to the trouble to purchase it from one station to the next station. Since it is the manner of a donkey driver to go to the trouble to purchase food, he may load the animal only with food for that day. Whereas it is not the manner of the renter to go to the trouble to purchase food, and therefore he may take food with him for the entire journey. It's not like there's a nice, highway gas stations along the way. You have to think, what kind of journey is this? Are we going to be able to resupply along the journey? The sages taught with regard to one who rents a donkey with the understanding that a man will ride on it. A woman may not ride on it. If he rented it with the understanding that a woman will ride on it, a man may ride upon it. And if he rented it with the understanding that a woman will ride upon it, any female may ride upon it, whether she is an adult woman or a minor girl. And even a pregnant woman, despite her additional weight, and even a nursing woman who takes the child with her may ride upon it. I suspect that the difference between a man and a woman, where it's easier to have a man on a donkey, is that the man would sit astride the donkey and then maybe the woman has to ride side saddle, and that would limit how much could be loaded on the donkey. Yeah, it's not really explained why that is. So let's keep going. And the Gemara asks, now that you said that the owner cannot prevent even a nursing woman from riding upon the donkey, despite the fact that this involves the weight of two people, right, the mother and the baby, or the infant, is it necessary to say that a pregnant woman may ride upon the donkey? She weighs less than a woman and a baby. Rav Papa said the Tana spoke of a pregnant woman who is also nursing, as there is additional weight. I'm almost done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. Abaye said you can learn from the fact that a pregnant woman is considered heavier than the average woman, that the weight of a fish is in its belly, meaning weight increases according to the size of its belly. And the Gemara asks, what is the practical difference resulting from Abaye's statement with regard to a fish? And the Gemara explains it is with regard to the laws of buying and selling, so that one can know how to evaluate the weight of a fish and calculate its value accordingly. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 2. We'll pick it up, God willing, tomorrow, Sunday, at the regular time with Mishnah number 3 here in chapter 6. I have one question from Sharon. If you buy land in Israel when the Yovel is not in effect, but miraculously the temple is rebuilt, does the land now revert to the original owners? I think we would ask Eliyahu Hanavi, right? At that point, those kinds of laws would be revealed. There's no way we can know what we would do. I would think that if we're asked to, if a poskening rabbi is asked to posken on that, his first question would be, how would I know who the original owners are? How do any of us know who the original owners are? Right? The only people who know what tribe they're a part of are the Levites, and the Kohanim are a subset of the Levites. But everybody else, they don't know. They don't even know, whether they're part of Yehuda or Dan or Gad, etc. So how could we apportion the land? We would need miraculous intervention. Now, once the temple is miraculously rebuilt, presumably there would be miraculous intervention, and the descendants, of the various tribes would understand where their portion of the land is. But then Eliyahu Hanavi would also tell us what to do with land that is currently owned. And by the way, there's probably more Jews now. I only say probably in the world than there were, back then. And there is a teaching that when the Messiah comes, right, when Mashiach comes and the temple is rebuilt and all Jews come back to the Holy Land itself will miraculously expand so that everyone can have a chelek, a portion in it. May that day come speedily and soon, and we say Amen. A good vok, Shavua Tov, and have a great week, everybody. Look forward to learning with you again tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific, God willing.